I welcome all to this function. I request Mr. Rajaram to come on the stage for welcome address.
Thank you very much. Happy greeting and Dasara to everyone. It seems quite appropriate that we should begin it on Dasara because, we are closely associated with the Mysore tradition. I'm very happy to see Honorable Justice Venkatachaliah agreed to grace the program. We also have several family members, notably Navratna Lakshman, the youngest son of Narasimharaja Rao, and Dr. Ramadevi, the youngest daughter, and several of the grandchildren. And hopefully some of the great-grandchildren will also be here. We will see, but anyway, we had planned to do it about a year ago, November of last year, which would be my late father's 100th birthday. But for various reasons connected with both technical and personal difficulties, we could not do it. So I would first like to point out, which I have mentioned in the introduction to my book, that this is not a literal translation. My sister began it as a literal translation. I also wish to thank the late Dr. M.N. Srinivas, who encouraged me at every stage. And I was talking about grandchildren, Mr. Trivikram Ramaholli, who is Narasimharaja Rao's grandson, is also here. And one of the things that strikes me is that more than 50 years after his death, there is still a lot of interest and goodwill for Narasimharaja Rao. It's because of his contribution and personality. And also, he left an impact both in literature and in the life of the state. And when I went through the book and did the rendering it in English, what I found was of the Mysore administration of those days was the respect for law, rule of law was very strong. And it was the king's law, of course, but then people could not take liberties with it. And so that is one of the things that came to my mind, the concern for the rule of law. And another thing is about his personality is his capacity to laugh at himself. For example, he writes about his violin, how his landlady took away his violin because she thought it a public nuisance. So his capacity to write about it, about his own, that sense of humor, to laugh at himself. That was one thing. And also, I think it would be interesting if someone were to organize a tour of the areas he writes about, a tourism package of that kind. And also, there are some personalities who have not, in Mysore history, who have not received the credit they deserve. For example, Vanevilas Sanidhana, her contribution is very great. In women's education, healthcare, and also she was one of the people who encouraged setting up of the Indian Institute of Science. People forget that it was Diwan Krishnamurti who was the Diwan when Tata was granted the land. Vanevilas Sanidhana had to do with the grant of the land to the Tata Institute, as it was then called. This was in 1902 when she had just about to complete her tenure as regent. And I now request the distinguished guest, ಈಗ ಕರೀಬೋದಾ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ಗೆ? ಹಾಂ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತೋರಿಸಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು. Yeah. This, of course, is the left is the one you are familiar with. The right side is the one taken at Lakshman Jhula. That's a rare photograph. And that was my father who sort of encouraged us to start the English version. and my younger sister Rajeshwari, who began it. And that, of course, is a friendship that people should know about. And this next one, Masti Venkatachaliah, and actually many of these stories were narrated at the Basavangudi Union and Services Club opposite the Basavangudi post office. So where he used to go to play bridge. So Masti also used to go there, and he encouraged my grandfather to write that. Next one, Tate was the mentor. Tate also is not sufficiently well known. I think I was one of the first to write about his career, both in India and in England. And dedication, the Kannada version was dedicated to Masti, and I felt we should include the Mysore royal family, which has done so much for the state, at least our part of the state. Thank you. That is the royal emblem. And could you please play this one? ಅದು ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಹಾಂ My grandfather, though a devoted Madhva Brahmin, was Catholic in his days. He was a great admirer of Shankaracharya's poetry. Here is a composition by Shankaracharya, sung by his favorite singer. Let us yeah. ಬನ್ನಿ ನಾನೇ ಬನ್ನಿ ಹಾಂ ಹಾಂ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ ಅದು ಯಾ go ahead. And actually, Srimati Sublakshmi and Sadashivam were family friends of our grandfather, and we had very close, association with them. But that is something we can discuss some other time. But I think he was a great admirer of her singing, and also Shankaracharya's poetry, if not his, philosophy. So may I now request, ಹೇಳಿ Yeah. Okay, please. ಹಾಂ ಇನ್ನೇನಿಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ ಬರಲಿ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ And I would like to thank Sri Pranesh, who brought out not only this book, but of my other grandfather, Ramahalli Vyasrao, whose Krishna Charitra also, I wrote, which Sri Pranesh and the Prism books brought out. Venkatachaliah, please. Belinda, Lakshman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Rajaram, for your excellent welcome address. Now I request Mr. Srinath Shastri to give us an insight about the book Vanished Raj.
Justice Venkatachaliah, Dr. Navratna Rajaram, Dr. Navratna Lakshman, Mr. Pranesh, ladies and gentlemen. Translation is a a tricky business, and it gets trickier when the languages in question are not culturally linked. For our ethos and cultural beliefs largely influence the languages we speak and the way we express themselves in them. The French, the discerning people that they are, therefore say translations, like women, cannot be both faithful and beautiful. But as a person who has been married close to 25 years, I am prepared to believe that the statement is not true of women. But as someone who has dabbled a bit in translation himself, I am not prepared to believe that the statement is not true of translations. Navaratna Ramarao's Kelavu Nenapugulu is set in the early decades, in the Mysore of the early decades of the last century. It was largely feudal society, and the king not only reigned but also ruled, and his representatives, the officialdom, commanded considerable respect and awe. The narrative itself is chatty and colloquial. Many expressions peculiar to the rural Mysore of that period, Akhalwan, Ainati, Yemmakka, and abound in the book. It is the effective use of these colloquialisms that make the book compelling reading and its translation a nightmare. I just give one example. Tandre Ninga episode. Tandre Ninga was a KD, a known depredator, and Ramrao, as the magistrate of the taluk and its police head, once had to raid Tandre Ninga's house in the dead of the night in connection with a theft in which Tandre Ninga's involvement was suspected. So when such party trekked through the night and reached his house, somewhere late in the night, such party comprising Ramarao and the Patel of the village and the members of the local constabulary, when they reached the house, Tandre Ninga's wife was alone in the house. And Navaratna Ramarao had the difficult task of persuading her to open the door so that he would carry out the search. And this is how Ramarao describes the episode. ತಂಟೆ ನಿಂಗನ ಹೆಂಡತಿಗೆ ಬಾಗಿಲು ತೆಗೆ ಮನೆ ಜುಡ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕೆಂದು ಅಪ್ಪಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಅವಳ ಸದ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲ. ನೇಣುಗೀಣು ಹಾಕಿಕೊಂಡಾಳೋ ಎಂದು ಸಂದೇಹ ತೋರಿ ಬಾಗಿಲನ್ನು ಬಲಾತ್ಕಾರದಿಂದ ತೆಗೆಸಿದೆ. ಅವಳು ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿ ಅಳಹತ್ತಿ, ಇದೇನು ಬುದ್ಧಿ, ಮಾನವಾಗಿರೋಕ್ಕಾಗದೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆಳ್ವಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ, ಗಂಡುಳ್ಳ ಗರತಿ ಹರಾದ ಹುಡುಗಿಯ ಮನೆಗೆ ರಾತ್ರಿ ಸರ್ರಾತ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನುಗ್ಗಬಹುದೇ ವಗೈರೆ ಆವಟ ತೆಗೆದಳು. ದೇವರಸೇಗೌಡ ಸುಮ್ಮಗಿರಮ್ಮ ನಕ್ಕಾರು. ಸುಬೇದಾರು ನಿನ್ನ ಚಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೆಚ್ಚಿ ಕಳ್ಳು ಮುಳ್ಳು ಗೋರಿಯಾಗ ಈಟು ದೂರ ಬಂದವರೇ ಅಂತೀಯಲ್ಲ, ಬೇಕಾದರೆ ನಿನ್ನೆ ಕರೆಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಲಾರದೆ ಹೋದರೆ ಅಂದ. ಹೌ ಕೆನ್ ಎನಿಬಡಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್? ಗಂಡುಳ್ಳ ಗರತಿಗೆ ಹರಾದ ಹುಡುಗಿ ಮನೆಗೆ ರಾತ್ರಿ ಸರ್ರಾತ್ರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನುಗ್ಗಬಹುದೇ, ಕಳ್ಳು ಮುಣ್ಣು ಗೋರಿಯಾಗಿ ಈಟು ದೂರ ಬಂದವರೇ. How can anybody capture the natural rhythm and cadences in translation? Navaratna Ramarao was a master storyteller, and the language he has used to narrate the story is robust and earthy. It is his earthiness that gives that makes his cameos come to life effectively and effortlessly. Marashetti incident is another thing I just like to read to illustrate this. Marashetti was a middle-aged, wasted, weak man who had successfully seduced a young housewife. But while he was eloping with her, he was caught by the woman's husband and brought to Navaratna Ramarao for justice. And this is how Navaratna Ramarao describes Marashetti. ಕನಕ ಕರಡಿಗೆ ವ್ಯಾಜ್ಯದಿಂದ ಆ ಹುಡುಗಿಯನ್ನು ಅಪಹರಿಸಿದ ಮರಿಶೆಟ್ಟಿಯೋ ಅವನು ಮನ್ಮಥನಲ್ಲ, 10 ತಲೆಗಳ ಧೀರ ರಾವಣನಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮಾರು 40-45 ವರ್ಷದ ಸ್ವಾಭಾವಿಕವಾಗಿ ದುರ್ಬಲ ಶರೀರದ ಕುಣಿಗಣ್ಣಿನ ಬತ್ತಿದ ಕೆನ್ನೆಗಳ ಶೋಧಭಾವದ ಮನುಷ್ಯ. ಈಗ ಬಹಳ ಬೆದರಿ ಚಂಚಲ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಅತ್ತ ಇತ್ತ ನೋಡುತ್ತಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಆದರೂ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕುದುರಿದರೆ ಅಧಿಕ ಪ್ರಸಂಗಿಯಾಗಿ ಎದುರು ಬೀಳುವ ಸ್ವಭಾವದನೆಂದು ತೋರಿತು. ಲೇಟರ್ ವೆನ್ ಹಿ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಮರಿಶೆಟ್ಟಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಈಸ್ ಮರಿಶೆಟ್ಟಿ's ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್. ನಾನು ಮರಿಶೆಟ್ಟಿಯನ್ನು ವಿಚಾರಿಸಲಾಗಿ ಅವನು, ಸ್ತ್ರೀಯರ ಶೋಭಾವ ತಮ್ಮಂಥ ಶಕಲವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿದವರಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮಂಥವರು ಹೇಳಬೇಕೆ? ಈ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಸಂತೆಗೂ ಬಂದು ವಿಲಾಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಸಂಸಾರಿಯಾದ ನನ್ನ ಮರಳು ಮಾಡಿ ಮಂಕುಬೂದಿ ಚೆಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನ ಕರಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗು, ನಿನ್ನ ಮೇಲೆ ನನಗೆ ಪರಾಣ, ಹೀಗೆ ಬೇಜಾರು ಬರಸೋಳು. ನಾನು, ಬೇಡಮ್ಮ, ನೀ ಬದುಕೋಳು ಬಾಳೋಳು, ಅಥವಾ ಅಲ್ಲ ಹಾಗೇನಾದರೂ ಬೇಕಾದರೆ ಮನೆಯಾಗೆ ಇದ್ದುಕೊಂಡು ಮಾಡಿಕೋವ, ನಿನ್ನ ಗಂಡ ಎರಡು ಹೊತ್ತು ಇದ್ದಾನ. ಅಂಬ್ಲಿ ಕುಡಿಯೋಕೆ ಬಂದವರು ಅಳಿಗೆ ಕದ್ದು ಹೋಗಬೇಕಾ ಎಂದು ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಈ ಮೂರ್ಖಿ ಇಡದ ಆಟ ಬಿಡದೆ ಕಪಿಮುಟ್ಟಿ ಎಂದರೆ ಕಪಿಮುಟ್ಟಿ ಹೇಳಿ, ಹೆಂಗಾದರೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಬಿದ್ದೋಗ್ತೀನಿ, ಬಾವಿಗೆ ಬೀಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಇಶಾ ಕುಡಿದೋ ಉರುಳು ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಂಡೋ ಪರಾಣ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ದವ್ವ ಆಗಿದ್ರೂ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಿಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಕಾಡಿಸೋಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದಳು. ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಇದೇನು ಬಂತಪ್ಪ ಗಾಚಾರ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡೆ. ಅವಳಿಗೆ ತಿಳಿದೆ ಸಂತೆಯಿಂದ ಹೊರಟು ಹೋಗೋಣೆಂದು ಹೊರಟೆ. ಹಿಂದೆ ಬರಬೇಕೇ ಈ ನಾಚಿಕೆಟ್ಟ ಮೂಳಿ, ನಾನು ನರಮಸ್ಸನಲ್ಲವೇ ಸಾರ್, ಎಂತೆಂಥವರೋ ವಿಶ್ವಾಮಿತ್ರರು ನಾರದರು ಇಂತಹ ಮಹಾಋಷಿಗಳೇ ಸ್ತ್ರೀಯರ ಪಾಶಕ್ಕೆ ಕಟ್ಟು ಬೀಳಲಿವೆ, ನಮ್ಮಂಥ ನರಮನುಷ್ಯರ ಪಾಡೇನು. ಇವನು ಪೇಟೆ ಸ್ಥಳದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತು ಕಲಿತ ಪ್ರಾಜ್ಞ. ಅವನ ನಾಗರಿಕತೆಗೂ ರೂಪಗೂ ತೇಜಸ್ಸಿಗೂ ಮೆಚ್ಚಿ ಈ ಹುಡುಗಿ ಬೇಡವೆಂದರೂ ಅವನ ಬೆನ್ನು ಹಿಡಿದು ಬಂದಳಂತೆ. ನನಗೆ ಹೇಳಲಾಗದಷ್ಟು ಅಸಹ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಅವನಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿದ್ದ ಕುದುರೆ ಚಡಿಯಿಂದ 4-5 ರಸವತ್ತಾದ ಪೆಟ್ಟು ಹೊಡೆದೆ. Well, how can again anybody translate this into English or any other language for that matter? That's why Dr. Rajaram and his sister have sensibly not tried to translate this book into English. They have retold the story in English. The retelling is simple, lucid, and beautiful. Nearly 60 years, I think, separate the writing of the book and the incidents narrated therein. This distance in time has given the narrative a sense of detachment and objectivity that comes with it. Ram Rao himself was in the evening of his life when he wrote this book, and he obviously had the ability to look on life not as in the hour of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still sad music of humanity, nor harsh nor grating, though of ample power to chastise and subdue. In the pages of this book, one can feel, one can experience the chastising power of the still sad music of humanity. Rajaram and his sister Rajeshwari deserve our grateful gratitude, richly deserve our gratitude for this English version. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Shastri, for wonderful insight about the book. Now I request Honorable Justice M.N. Venkatachaliah to release the book.
Shri Rajaram, Shri Pranesh, Shri Lakshman, Srinath, members of the Narasimharaja family, very distinguished and respected invitees. We just heard Mr. Srinath read to you some beautiful passages, the reminiscences of Narasimharaja Rao. Translation, it is said, is an attempt to draw the flavor of ghee through oil. Normally you can't achieve it. But the way in which Mr. Rajaram has brought out the essence of these thoughts. This book is not a translation of a civil servant's experience of administration. It's a part of history of old Mysore, the culture of old Mysore, the quality of administration, governance at the hands of kings and princes, and more than all, the values of domestic life, family life. For instance, there is an instance which there's a man who's absconded. There's a criminal who had absconded. His name, I think, is Dodda Haida. Ram Rao sends for his wife. Her name, if I remember right, is Girijamma. And tells her that her husband has not been loyal to him. He's a criminal and she has a duty to hand him over to the police. And to arouse her jealousy and her dislike for her husband, he suggests to her that the runaway bandit has a running affair with a washerwoman. He mentions this to provoke her anger and make her reveal the whereabouts of the man. He tells her, this fellow is not loyal to you. He has an affair with a washerwoman. And it's your duty. He tries to arouse her dislike to her own husband. But the values of family life that comes out, she makes a spirited defense of her protecting her husband. She says, he may be a criminal, he may ill-treat me, he may have affairs, but he is my husband. You are a Brahmin. He tells Narasimharaja, you are a Brahmin. How does it lie in your mouth to persuade a wife to betray her own husband? This is not, you may have your law on your side, but I have dharma on my side. I have to protect my husband, I will do at whatever cost. Mr. Ram Rao in the original itself pays a tearful tribute to the gutsy woman who stands by the values of family life. These are some of these, as Srinath said, it's very difficult to bring out to animate, reanimate and reenact the spirit of those situations. It is perhaps a beautiful reflection on the conditions of society of our times in those days. We didn't have the benefit of an interaction with this great man. He was not only a good civil servant, as Mr. Rajgopalachari says, he was among the brightest of students in Central College along with Rajgopalachari. He says, Rajgopalachari says, I wanted to cultivate his friendship. I had such great admiration for this boy. He was his class fellow. Then he leaves a letter in his room saying, I want to be your friend, please accept me. And he says the bonds of friendship, the mutual promise that they make is that they will not break this friendship, whatever might happen, and maintain it throughout their life, which they did. This is the reflection of the society of those days, both the good and the bad of it. But compared to what we see in contemporary society, there's no loyalty, no friendship, no honor, no dignity. It's only a kind of a worldly goods. The relationships are entirely commercial. And I have dealt with a large number of disputes that that have arisen between husbands and wives, particularly in North India, in the cases that would come out. I couldn't believe, one has to rub his eyes in disbelief that those who have lived as husband and wife, friends in the Indian tradition, when on account of small differences, they are prepared to go to any extent to exploit the difference, aided by very brilliant lawyers. I have a brilliant lawyer here, Sudhindra, sitting here, and I once, a judge came to me and said he wanted a good lawyer for his daughter. I said, I can't think of a better man than Sudhindra. And I want this matter to be settled, he said. I said, we'll request him, let him try. Within 1 month, he settled it in the best of terms in favor of that girl. And the judge came and said, look at this man, is something extraordinary. He's here. That we have seen a marriage that was celebrated and on their own admission at an expense of 9 crores of rupees in North India. The husband and wife had some differences, petty differences. And the lawyers wanted us to settle it in the chambers and settle some. I was reluctant. I wanted the matter to be decided in court. But the judge who was sitting with me thought that the family was such a highly placed family, highly politically connected, that we should try to sort it out in the chambers if possible. In the lunchtime, they were supposed to come in. And before they came, the heavy perfume of those ladies and gentlemen who were accompanying them was already wafting into my room. It was so artificial. Then I told my colleague, I don't think I'll handle these people who have on such occasions also come with such perfumed luxury, and I don't think we can do anything with these people. I declined to handle that. My brother judge was more optimistic. He spent a lot of time and ultimately told me they're hardened criminals, that you can't do anything with them. This is the state to which society has come down. There are reflections of the shades of graciousness that the middle class society, we don't speak of the rich and the opulent, the ordinary run-of-the-mill citizens of this country, of this state, under the rule of the Maharaja. Of course, we are now sold on to democracy. Of course, the very basic value of human life, why men associate themselves into a social organization, why do they get into a political organization. We go back to Plato, who said, we want a human society because each one of us is incomplete by himself. He needs the companionship of others to complete himself. And so social organizations are meant to ensure, to provide the best opportunity for everyone, each one, to attain his highest self. And this is the facility that you must provide. Locke and philosophers say, if you don't provide it, is the duty to disobey. When does the right to disobey society becomes a duty to disobey? The connections which we have, gentle, pure, beautiful human relations, values, which, for want of a better word, what ties people among themselves, family members, friends. This is something which is, and I very respectfully suggest to Mr. Ramaswamy that you must ask Srinath to read some parts of it once in a week or once in a month. Of this, he puts his fingers just on those areas of this book which will evoke so much of human interest in this situation. In fact, I was about I was going through, Mr. Rajaram says, when that Mari Shetty, who elopes with a young woman and comes back and assures her husband and the gathering, the people, that in spite of his company she has been pure. And the author says, I saw a mischievous glint in his eye when he said that. It was a mischievous glint in eye, and exactly the same expression that Mr. Rajaram uses in describing that that man's countenance. He must have, obviously the story he put forward must have been exactly the opposite of what must have happened. He must have enticed a trusting young lady, promising a better life for her, and tried to run away with her, and then shamelessly accuses her of insisting upon running away with this. And the stage is set for your decision, whether that's a probable story or not, by the way in which Mr. Ramarao describes that man's physical features: a sallow cheek, a weak, emaciated fellow who had no romantic appeal to any woman. And this is what is left to imagination is something which he says can't be drawn out. It's a beautiful work, and it's a reflection on the state of society that we lived in 2 generations ago. Everything is changed now. In another 5 years' time, I think human society, will have no resemblance to the one which we live in today. The technology will make such great inroads in our lives. They say that there is going to be, in another 5 to 10 years, no decision on important matters is made by human intellect. The superior, superhuman intelligence of the computers will make all the decisions. They say that's the end of the human era and the commencement of what they call era of technological singularity, that every important decision will be made by the computers and with their super intelligence. They'll not only be intelligent, they'll be more intelligent than men. And this is the age to which we are moving in. And human emotions, human feelings will be subordinated to the paramount requirements of some kind of a new order, technological order. Science has already dissipated space. It has eliminated distance. London is next door to you. New York is next door to you. It has also dissipated time. You send an email to your son in America today, the reply will come yesterday, because today is yesterday in America. And the computers put in a sanity check and says, well, they update the date. This, you can't even imagine. Commercially, we have exploited this situation. All these software companies take advantage of the fact that it is today, well, it is yesterday or you are yesterday and America is tomorrow. And you work for them overnight, and this, how they have exploited it is another matter of genius. That this kind of time lag is the essence of the success of our service providing industries. And things will change in such a way that I think somebody said medical treatment was prescriptive some time ago. It would prescribe a medicine, doctor will say you take this medicine, and that prescription is your source of cure. Then became participatory. You got to go to a machine, lie down there, they will investigate and give some supply, some data to the doctor. That became participatory. Now it has become predictive. The new tools of new diagnostic tools of the future are not these big machines. They will have to be sold away by weight in another 5 years' time. And the tools of diagnosis There's one drop of saliva, one drop of blood, one drop of urine, and a small prick of the earwax. And one drop of saliva will tell you about 28 diseases that you already have or likely to acquire in the future. Some lady, she was told on the examination of our saliva that 6 years down the line, there's 87% chances of her developing a breast cancer. In anticipation of that thing, she had a prophylactic preventive mastectomy right now. She said, if I have breast, then there will be cancer, so I will not have breasts at all. And she is a very famous actress. Recently, Angelina Jolie, this is going to be the medicine in the next 5 to 10 years. This is the kind of thing that we are entering into. And to adjust our cultural life, to modify our cultural life, to comport with the scientific world that we are getting into, which will control every department of our life, is going to be the most traumatic experience of our civilization. I think the most difficult century in human history will be the 21st century. They say the 20th century is 100 years of science, which is itself no slouch for change. 21st century will not be 100 years, it will be 20,000 years of science. And it will begin to unfold from 2020 onwards. The whole thing will change. These books, the beauty of life, the pathos of life, the beauty of human relations that we see in these books, the reminiscences, will all become some kind of legendary past. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply indebted to Dr. Rajaram for inviting me. I am deeply sensible of the honor of this invitation. I am so happy that you gave me an opportunity to be associated with. I used to see now Ram Rao walking with his walking stick on his shoulder, and with an old Alsatian dog following him in Basamuri when he was walking about. And everybody would look up to him and say, this is Mr. Navaratna Ram Rao. And just this morning I was rereading the tribute Rajagopalachari wrote about Ram Rao. His admiration was unstinted. He was a brilliant mind. And that also gave an idea of the kind of society we lived in and the values. We kill almost 100,000 of persons, 100,000 people on the roads in the accidents. There, one criminal was caught. I think it was Dodai himself. After 4 years, after that grateful wife who refused to divulge his movements and identity to the police, he himself killed her on the suspicion that she had leaked out information to the police. And he killed her. And she had predicted that even if he kills me, I am not going to reveal his movements to you. And this is the way in which things are happening today. And possibly life, as we have seen it, particularly the old Mysore state, is going to be a distant dream for the future. The posterity will live in a terribly artificial lead a life which will have no emotional content at all. And some satisfaction for some of them who miss this beauty of the old Mysore. You see, in fact, this is not a very rich state in financial terms, but in terms of culture, terms of taste, in terms of the husband wouldn't buy the wife a palatial building. But he came back home in Mysore, it was traditional for him to buy a small bunch of flowers, the jasmine of Mysore, and buy a small piece of sweet, the Mysore pak from a small shop, and take it to the wife. And that was his tribute to womanhood. in general. This is kind of sensitive awareness of the thin relationship, the very gentle things that connect people from one to another. This is the essence of this book. I think we have the Vanished Raj is a metaphor for this great change we see in society. Whether it's for better or worse, God only knows. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, sir. I request Mr. Navaratna Lakshman to address the audience.
Honorable Justice Shri M. N. Venkatachaliah, Navaratna Rajaram, Mr. Srinath, and Mr. Pranesh, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the collective of the Navaratna family, I wish to express our deep appreciation to the excellent work done by my nephew, Dr. Navaratna Rajaram, and my niece, Rajeshwari Rao, now in Sydney, in bringing out the English version of my father's immortal Kannada memoir, Kelavu Nenpugalu. It is remarkable that they have maintained the heart and the soul of the original work, despite the complexity of the native language used all through in the narrative. This itself speaks for the success of the venture. The entire Navaratna family feels deeply honored that this book is released by the illustrious legal luminary, Honorable Justice M. N. Venkatachaliah, who is held in high esteem nationwide. With this launch, this multifaceted memoir, in its new version, is bound to see its popularity soar into the vast expanse of the literary horizon, attracting much wider readership. It won't be long before this literary treasure is rendered into French and German, which were my father's favorite foreign languages. On behalf of my family, I express our gratitude to Honorable Shri M. N. Venkatachaliah for his kind act of gracing this occasion and making it very, very, very memorable. Now, on behalf of my family, we would be honoring Dr. Rajaram in the traditional Mysore way, in keeping with the title of his book.
I request Justice Venkatachaliah to join us in honoring.
Thank you, sir. I request Mr. Mahesh to propose the vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we have witnessed today is a wonderful event. Not only the release of the book, but the release of the book is so apt that it is being released 2 days after the beginning of the Dasara function at Mysore. So I would take this opportunity to thank a few people who made it possible for a memorable event to happen. First of all, I would like to thank our Honorable Chief Justice, retired Supreme Court of India, Mr. Venkatachaliah, in spite of his busy schedules, made it possible to attend this, release the book, speak about the book, and make this a memorable event. Thank you very much, sir. We would want to present a memento with a bouquet, and I would request Mr. Pranesh, Managing Director of Prison Books Private Limited, to hand over a bouquet and memento. Thank you, sir. The book release of such a kind would not be possible without rewriting the book and telling the story by Narasimharaja, the author of the book of Vanished Raj. I would thank him. Thank you, sir, for bringing out such a wonderful book and bringing out an apt moment when Dasara is just getting started. Thank you. I would request Panesh sir to hand over the memento to him. Now I would thank Srinivasa Shastri for making it possible to come today and giving an insight into the writing of the book. Thank you, sir. I would request Panesh sir to hand over the memento to him. Srinivasa. So I would thank Navaratna Lakshman for making it possible for come and attending the function here. I would request Pranesh sir to hand over the memento to him. Thank you, sir. The program is held in our place. This would have not been possible without the support of the Gokhale Institute of Public Affairs. I would specially thank Ramaswamy, Gokhale Institute of Public Affairs, for providing us the space, and I would request Pranesh sir to hand over the memento and a bouquet to him, please. Thank you, sir, for giving us such a wonderful place. Thank you, sir. And special thanks to all the family members of Navaratna Rajaram who are present here. Also, the staff members of Gokhale Institute who have been behind us working towards making this possible, making this moment a memorable one. And also, last but not the least, the media people who are here and my friends and colleagues. Thank you all. Thanks and God bless for all the function what we had today, which is purely memorable. Thank you. With this, we are coming to the close of the function. Books are available on sale outside, and we have 10 to 15 minutes when Rajaram can get the book signed, can go pick up the copies and get it signed from the author. Thank you.